The cake hadn't even been cut yet, when an 8-year-old ruined her parents' entire scheme with whispered words. "Grandpa, my parents will take your money after the party today. Don't sign anything." I almost dropped my lemonade. Her name is Iris. She's got Joanne's eyes, that same sharp, knowing look my wife gives me when I'm about to do something stupid. And she'd tugged on my sleeve in the middle of my own 72nd birthday party, like she was defusing a bomb. "What did you say, sweetheart?" She glanced over her shoulder toward the patio, where her mother was laughing too loud at something her father said, the way people laugh when they're performing happiness instead of feeling it. "Mom and Dad have papers," Iris said. "In the car. Mr. Bennett's coming after cake. They said you're going to sign your house over because you're getting confused. I heard them practicing what to say to you." Welcome back to Dad's Sweet Revenge. Grab your snacks, get comfortable, and remember, every villain in these stories thought they were the smartest person in the room. They were not. Subscribe, so you never miss a story. I want you to understand something about me before I go any further. I'm Charles Whitaker, 72 years old, 40 years running a small architectural firm in Philadelphia before I sold it, and retired with a modest, comfortable nest egg, not a fortune, but enough to make a man's children start doing math in their heads when he turns 70. I built houses. I built additions, sunrooms, 3-season porches for half this neighborhood. I am not, and never have been, confused. But here's the thing about getting older that nobody warns you about. People start deciding for you what you are. And once your own son and his wife decide you're getting confused, that label sticks to everything you say afterward, like flypaper. "Are you sure, Iris?" She nodded, solemn as a judge. "I'm not lying, Grandpa. I heard them in the kitchen. Mom said, he won't even remember signing it by next week. And Dad said, just get him to do it before Aunt Rachel shows up and starts asking questions." I felt something cold drop straight through my chest and land somewhere around my shoes. Because that detail, before Rachel shows up, that was the part that told me this wasn't a misunderstanding. That was the part that told me my own son Chandler and his wife Melody had timed this, planned it, built a script around it. I didn't know it yet, but that whisper from an 8-year-old was about to be the most honest thing said at my birthday party all day. Let me back up, because you need the full picture before you understand what I did next. 6 months earlier, Joanne and I sat down with Chandler and Melody for what they called a family planning conversation. Real warm phrase, that one. Sounds like something you'd hear on a calming meditation app, not something you'd hear right before your son starts talking about your estate like you're already dead. "We just want to make sure everything's protected," Melody had said, sliding a folder across our dining room table like she was closing a car deal. "For you and Mom. In case anything happens." "Nothing's happening," I told her. "I had a physical in March. Doctor says I've got the cholesterol of a man half my age." "It's not about now, Dad," Chandler said. "It's about planning ahead. Now, I want to be fair here, because revenge stories are easy to tell when you paint everyone else as a cartoon villain. So let me say this plainly. There is nothing wrong with estate planning. Joanne and I had already done ours, years ago, with our own lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Claire Vance. Claire had drawn up a trust years back. Everything was already handled. Chandler knew this. Melody knew this. Which is exactly why what came next stung so much. Because they weren't trying to help us plan. They were trying to redirect what was already planned. "We talked to someone," Melody said that day, 6 months before the party. "A guy named Mr. Bennett. He specializes in—" She paused, like she was choosing each word out of a minefield. "Situations like this, where there might be some vulnerability." "Vulnerability," I repeated. "Dad." Chandler leaned forward, all earnest concern, the same face he used to make as a kid when he wanted a later curfew. "You forgot Mom's pickup time from her book club last month. You left the stove on in February. We're not saying we just want a second set of eyes on the finances. That's all. I had left the stove on once. One time. I was 71 years old and I'd put a kettle on and gotten absorbed in a phone call with an old client about a roof pitch. And yes, the kettle had screamed itself dry before Joanne caught it. That was the entire body of evidence. One kettle. Joanne, beside me, had gone very quiet. I should have paid more attention to that silence. Joanne's quiet is never empty. It's loaded. "We'll think about it," I said. "There's no rush," Melody said sweetly. Too sweetly. We just think it'd be good to have Mr. Bennett at your birthday party. Casual. Low pressure. Just a chat. I should have smelled it then. A lawyer invited to a birthday party. Low pressure. People don't bring estate attorneys to balloon and cake events unless they're planning an ambush dressed up as a coincidence. But I let it go. Because that's what you do with your children. Even when they're 41 years old and pulling something shady. You give them the benefit of the doubt one more time than they've earned. Because some stubborn part of you still sees them as the kid who used to fall asleep on your shoulder during long car rides. That stubborn part of me was about to get a very expensive education. The day of the party, our backyard in Philadelphia looked like a Pinterest board had thrown up on it. White balloon arch, a banner that said Happy 72 ND, fold-out tables groaning under deviled eggs and a sheet cake the size of a manhole cover. Joanne had been up since 6 arranging centerpiece decorations. My daughter Rachel, God love her, the one child I never had to worry about scheming against me, was running late from D.C. because of a flight delay, which, in hindsight, might have been the only thing standing between me and total financial ruin. Cole, Rachel's husband, had texted that morning. Running behind, traffic from the airport is brutal. Tell Charles happy birthday. We'll be there by 3 o'clock. I checked my watch. It was 1:40. And at 1:40, Iris had pulled on my sleeve. I want to be honest about what went through my head in that moment. Standing in my own backyard with a paper plate of potato salad in one hand, and my granddaughter's small, urgent fingers wrapped around my wrist. Part of me wanted to march straight over to Chandler and Melody and demand an explanation right then and there. Part of me wanted to believe Iris had misheard, that 8-year-olds get things twisted, that maybe they were talking about something else entirely. A surprise trip, a new car, anything but what she was describing. But then I looked toward the driveway. There was a car I didn't recognize. Tan sedan, parked at an angle like whoever drove it hadn't bothered to care how it looked. And standing beside it, checking his phone, was a man in a gray suit that cost more than my first car. He didn't belong at a backyard birthday party with paper plates and a Bluetooth speaker playing Sinatra. He belonged in a downtown office with leather chairs and a view of City Hall. That was Mr. Bennett. Iris, I said quietly, crouching down to her level, you did the right thing telling me. I need you to do one more thing for me, okay? I need you to keep playing, keep eating cake, and not say anything to your parents about what you told me. Can you do that? She nodded, eyes wide, like we were now co-conspirators in something serious. Which, as it turns out, we were. Am I in trouble? She whispered. No, sweetheart, I kissed the top of her head. You might have just saved your grandfather's entire future. I didn't know it yet, but I was about to find out exactly how far my son and his wife were willing to go. I found Joanne in the kitchen, pretending to rearrange a vegetable tray that didn't need rearranging. We need to talk, I said, low enough that it wouldn't carry past the screen door. What's wrong? Her hands stopped moving over the carrot sticks. Iris just told me Chandler and Melody have papers in their car. Something for me to sign today. Mr. Bennett's here. I nodded toward the window, toward the gray suit still loitering by the tan sedan. He's the lawyer they mentioned 6 months ago. Joanne's face did something I'll never forget. It went through about 4 emotions in under 2 seconds. Confusion, then disbelief, then a flash of pure fury, and then, finally, something cold and calculating that I hadn't seen from my wife since she negotiated us out of a bad mortgage rate back in 1996. They're doing it today, she said. Not a question. Looks that way. At his own birthday party. She set the serving spoon down with more force than necessary. Charles, I want you to listen to me very carefully. We are not going to make a scene in front of 40 guests and a child. I wasn't planning to. Good, because I have a better idea. This, right here, is where I need to tell you something about my wife. Because the version of this story where I'm the clever one who outsmarted his greedy son would be a lie. Joanne is the strategist in this marriage. I build things. She plans the attack. 46 years of marriage, and I've learned that when Joanne gets that particular glint in her eye, the smartest thing I can do is shut up and follow her lead. What kind of idea? The kind, she said, where we let them think it's working. Here's what we did next, and I want to walk you through it step by step. because the beauty of it is in the details. First, I went outside and found Chandler near the drink cooler, nursing a beer he clearly wasn't enjoying. The kind of beer a guy drinks when he's nervous and needs something to do with his hands. "Hey, Dad." He startled slightly when I approached. Guilty conscience does that to a man. "Good party, huh? Your mother outdid herself." I clapped him on the shoulder, the same way I'd clapped him on the shoulder at his Little League games, at his college graduation, at his wedding. The same hand. A very different intention underneath it now. "Listen, I noticed Mr. Bennett's here. Joanne mentioned you two wanted to chat about some paperwork." I watched his face for the lie. It came fast. Smooth. Rehearsed. "Yeah. Just nothing big. We figured since everyone's here, maybe after cake we could go over a few things. Update some documents. Keep everything current. You know how it is." "Sure," I said. "Sounds reasonable. I want you to notice that word. Reasonable." I said it like a man walking calmly into a trap, because that's exactly what I needed him to believe I was doing. "We'll do cake," I continued. "Then I'll meet you and Bennett in the study. Sound good?" Relief flickered across his face so plainly it would have been almost funny if it weren't so disgusting. "Sounds great, Dad. Really, we just want to make sure you and Mom are taken care of." "Of course you do," I said, and walked away before my voice could betray me. The second thing I did was call Rachel. I slipped into the privacy of the side garage so I wouldn't be seen making intense phone calls in the yard. She picked up on the second ring, airport noise roaring behind her. "Dad." "Hey, we're boarding now, should be there by 3 like Cole said." "Rachel, listen to me. I need you to do something. When Melody comes to get me for that meeting after the cake, I want you and Cole to slip into the house right behind us. Can you record video on your phone the second you walk into that study?" Something in my tone must have cut through the airport chaos, because her voice sharpened instantly. "What's going on?" I told her. Fast, in the kind of clipped sentences you use when every second matters. The whisper from Iris, the tan sedan, Mr. Bennett's gray suit, the casual chat planned for after cake. There was a long pause on the line, long enough that I thought we'd lost connection. "Dad," Rachel finally said, "I am going to murder my brother. Get in line. But I need you here, not in prison. Keep that camera ready. Count on it." The third thing I did, and this is the part Joanne is most proud of, even now, was call our actual attorney, Claire Vance, the one who'd drawn up our real trust years ago, the one with decades of trust between us, the one who knew exactly how Chandler and Melody had been sniffing around our finances for the better part of a year. "Charles," she said, "tell me you're not actually considering signing anything today. Not a chance. I need you to do something for me instead." I laid out the plan, Joanne's plan, mostly, with my fingerprints on the execution. Claire listened without interrupting, which is one of the many reasons we've kept her on retainer for 2 decades. "You understand," she said carefully, "that what you're describing could constitute elder financial exploitation, depending on what's actually in those documents. If Bennett is who I think he is, who do you think he is? There's a Bennett who works the mainline circuit, specializes in simplified guardianship transfers. Predatory stuff, dressed up in nice paperwork. If that's your guy, Charles, this is serious. This isn't a misunderstanding between you and your son. This is a calculated attempt to take your assets while you're still alive to feel the loss." The backyard music kept playing through the kitchen window. Somewhere out there, my grandchildren were chasing each other around the balloon arch, completely unaware that their grandfather's entire financial future was being negotiated in whispers over carrot sticks. "Send me everything you need digitally," Claire said. "And Charles, don't sign one single thing today, not even a birthday card, if Bennett's holding the pen." By the time 3 o'clock rolled around, the backyard was full. Neighbors, old colleagues from the architecture firm, Joanne's sister and her husband, a scattering of Iris's school friends running through the grass with sticky cake fingers. Rachel and Cole arrived at 3:05, breathless. Rachel's eyes finding mine across the yard with a look that said, "I know everything. I'm ready." I hugged her tight, longer than usual. "Where is he?" She murmured into my ear. "Study, 20 minutes. She squeezed my hand once, hard, then let go, and put on the warm, easy smile she always wore for family gatherings. But today, that smile was a mask, hiding a phone waiting in her jacket pocket. We did the cake. We did the candles. I blew them out in one breath, which got an obligatory round of applause, and Joanne squeezed my hand under the table in a way that said, "I'm proud of you, and also, we are about to ruin our son's entire week." Iris sat beside me through the whole thing, unusually quiet, watching her parents with the careful, watchful eyes of a kid who knows more than the adults think she does. At one point she leaned over and whispered, "Are you going to sign it?" "No, sweetheart," I whispered back. "I'm going to do something a lot more interesting." At 3:35, Melody appeared at my elbow with that same too-sweet smile from 6 months ago. "Charles, when you get a free minute, Chandler and Mr. Bennett are ready in the study. Just a few quick things to go over." "Of course," I said. "Lead the way." I caught Joanne's eye across the yard. She gave me the smallest nod, the kind of nod that meant, "I've got my phone ready. Rachel's got hers ready. Go." The study still smelled faintly of the cedar bookshelves I'd built myself 30 years ago, back when Chandler was a toddler crawling between the legs of my drafting table. There was something almost obscene about doing this here, in the room where I used to read him bedtime stories on the daybed in the corner, where his crayon drawings were still tucked in a box on the top shelf if you knew where to look. "Mr. Bennett stood when I entered, extending a manicured hand. "Mr. Whitaker, happy birthday. I won't take much of your time. Appreciate that." I shook his hand, noted the firm, practiced grip of a man who'd shaken 1,000 hands belonging to people he was about to take advantage of. "What have we got here?" He slid a folder across the desk, Chandler's old desk, the desk I'd given him when he moved into his first apartment, and then taken back when he and Melody downsized into a condo 5 years ago. The irony of that particular piece of furniture was not lost on me. "Just some straightforward updates," Bennett said smoothly. "A revised power of attorney, giving Chandler and Melody authority over financial decisions going forward, purely as a precaution, should anything ever happen health-wise, and a transfer document for the property deed, moving it into a joint trust with your son, to simplify things for tax purposes down the line." There it was, plain as day, dressed up in legal language, designed to make a man's eyes glaze over before he reads the part where he signs away his house. "Simplify things," I repeated. "Exactly," Bennett smiled, and I noted, not for the first time, the particular quality of a smile from a man who is paid by the hour to be persuasive. Chandler, standing by the bookshelf, wouldn't quite meet my eyes. "It's just a precaution, Dad. You know how Mom worries." I almost laughed at that. Mom worries. As if Joanne hadn't spent the entire afternoon plotting Chandler's public humiliation with the cool precision of a woman who'd once talked our bank into waiving a $400 overdraft fee through sheer force of will. "Mind if I take a look?" I asked, reaching for the folder. "Of course," Bennett said. "Take your time." I flipped through 3 pages, slow, deliberate, letting them both watch me read. The power of attorney was exactly what he'd described. Broad, sweeping authority granted to Chandler and Melody over every account, every asset, every decision. The deed transfer was worse. It didn't just add Chandler's name to the property, it restructured ownership entirely, putting 70% of the house's value under a trust controlled solely by Chandler and Melody, with a clause buried in paragraph 4. Paragraph 4, conveniently the page most people skim, stating that the current resident, meaning me and Joanne, could be relocated to alternative accommodations more suited to ongoing care needs, if deemed necessary by the trustees. The trustees, Chandler and Melody. They weren't just trying to get my money. They were building themselves a legal mechanism to put me and my wife in a nursing home and keep the house. My hands didn't shake. I want that on the record. 40 years of running a firm teaches a man how to keep his hands steady, even when his blood is boiling. "This is thorough," I said. "We want it to be comprehensive," Bennett said. "I'll bet." I closed the folder gently. "Mind if my wife and daughter sit in?" Family decisions, after all. We don't keep secrets in this house. Something flickered across Chandler's face, the first genuine crack in the performance. "Dad, it's really not necessary to make this a whole thing, it's just..." "Chandler." I kept my voice mild. "Pleasant even. Your sister flew in for my birthday. I'd like her in the room when I'm signing away the house she grew up in. That seems fair, doesn't it?" He couldn't say no without it looking suspicious. That was the beauty of it. Joanne had built this whole trap out of nothing but his own desire to look reasonable in front of an audience. "Sure," he said, jaw tight. "Of course." I opened the study door. Joanne was already there, like she'd been standing just outside the whole time, which she had. Rachel followed a step behind, phone tucked discreetly but unmistakably visible in her hand, the red recording light glowing. And behind them, drawn by some instinct only children possess for sensing when something important is happening, Iris slipped in too, small and quiet, finding a spot beside the bookshelf where she could see everything. I didn't ask her to leave. She'd earned the right to watch this unfold. "Mr. Bennett," I said, settling back into the chair behind Chandler's old desk. "Before I sign anything, I want to make sure I understand this correctly. Walk me through paragraph 4. Bennett's smile didn't waver, but something behind his eyes recalibrated. "Paragraph 4 is a standard provision for—" "Read it out loud," I said. "For the room." "Charles," Melody started. "I don't think we need to." "Read it," Joanne said, and her voice had a steel edge in it I hadn't heard since she'd fired a contractor for trying to overcharge us on a kitchen renovation in 2003. "We're all family here. Family doesn't hide things from each other." Bennett glanced at Chandler. Chandler said nothing. So Bennett, trapped by his own professional habit of doing what the client gestures at him to do, read it. "In the event the trustees deem it necessary for the well-being of the current resident, alternative accommodations may be arranged, with the trustees assuming full discretion over the resident's care and the disposition of the primary residence." The room went very still. Rachel was the one who broke it. "Translate that for the people who don't speak lawyer, please." Bennett cleared his throat. "It means that if, in the trustees' judgment, the resident's care needs exceed what the home can provide, the trustees can move the resident to a care facility and take possession of the home. The resident," I said slowly, "being me." "And me," Joanne added. "And the trustees," Rachel said, voice rising now, no longer bothering to hide the disgust, "being you, Chandler, and Melody. So let me make sure I've got this straight. You brought a lawyer to Dad's birthday party to get him to sign a document that would let you put him and Mom in a nursing home and keep the house." "It's not like that," Melody said, and for the first time all afternoon, her voice cracked under the performance. "It's a precaution. That's all it is. We'd never actually." "Then take out paragraph 4, I said. Silence. "If it's truly just a precaution," I continued, "and you'd never actually use it, then there's no harm in striking it from the document right now. Mr. Bennett, do you have a pen that crosses things out as easily as it signs things?" Bennett's professional smile had entirely evaporated by this point, replaced by the carefully blank expression of a man calculating his own liability. "Mr. Whitaker, I should clarify, my role here is simply to facilitate the document my clients requested." "Your clients," I said, "being my son and his wife." "Not me. I never hired you, never met you before today. And yet here you are, in my study, asking me to sign over my house." "Dad," Chandler's voice had gone thin, stripped of its earlier rehearsed warmth. "It's not. We weren't going to actually." "You were going to actually," Iris said. Every adult in that room turned toward the bookshelf, toward the small girl in the yellow sundress who'd been standing quietly through the entire confrontation, watching her parents unravel in real time. "Iris," Melody said. "Honey, go back outside. This is grown up, I heard you," Iris said. And her voice, though small, didn't waver. "In the kitchen, before the party. You said Grandpa wouldn't remember signing it. You said to get him to do it before Aunt Rachel came. You said it before he even knew about the papers." Melody's face went the color of the white tablecloths in the backyard. "Iris, sweetheart." She tried again, softer now, the panic seeping through. "You must have misunderstood. I'm not lying," Iris said, and her chin lifted, defiant in the way only an 8-year-old confronting an adult's dishonesty can manage. "I told Grandpa. That's why he didn't sign it. Because I told him the truth. I have built houses. I have raised children. I have run a business through 2 recessions and buried both my parents and never once cried in front of a client. But I will tell you that watching my 8-year-old granddaughter stand in that study and hold her own mother's gaze without flinching is the proudest I have ever been of anyone in my entire life. Out of the mouths of babes, Rachel murmured, still recording. Chandler tried one more time. Men like my son always try one more time. It's a kind of reflex. The belief that if you just keep talking, the truth will somehow rearrange itself into something more flattering. Dad, this is being blown completely out of proportion. We were trying to protect you. You don't understand the financial risks of getting older without. I understand exactly what's happening, I said. And now I let my voice carry the full weight of 40 years spent negotiating with contractors who thought I was too polite to call them liars to their faces. You and your wife decided that the easiest way to secure your inheritance early was to convince everyone, including yourselves, that I was too confused to know what I was signing. You hired a lawyer who specializes in exactly that kind of exploitation. You scheduled the meeting for after cake, when you assumed I'd be tired, distracted, surrounded by enough family noise that I wouldn't read the fine print. You timed it to happen before your sister arrived, because you knew she'd ask the questions you didn't want asked. The only flaw in your plan, Chandler, was that you forgot your daughter has better hearing and a stronger conscience than either of her parents. Nobody said anything for a long moment. Out in the backyard, faintly, the Sinatra playlist kept going, oblivious. Fly Me to the Moon drifting through the study window like a soundtrack to my son's unraveling. Mr. Bennett, sensing the professional and possibly legal ground shifting dangerously beneath him, gathered his folder with the efficient motion of a man who has decided this particular fee is no longer worth the exposure. Mr. Whitaker, I want to clarify that I had no knowledge of any intent to misrepresent the document's purpose to you. If that's what occurred here, I'd encourage you to seek independent counsel. Already have one, I said. She's been my attorney for 22 years. She'll be reviewing everything you brought today, including your firm's name and license number, which I photographed the moment you handed me this folder. That landed. Bennett's composure finally slipped all the way, just for a second, before he reset it. I think it's best I leave. I think that's the smartest thing you've said all afternoon, Joanne said. He left without another word, his tan sedan pulling out of the driveway moments later, gravel crunching under tires in a hurry to be elsewhere. What happened next, I need to tell you carefully, because this is the part where the public reveal. The part I'd promised myself, promised Joanne, promised the situation demanded, actually happened. I didn't want to scream at my son in front of 40 party guests. That's not who I am, and frankly, it's beneath the dignity of the moment. But I also wasn't going to let Chandler and Melody walk back out into that backyard, smile for photos, and let everyone believe nothing had happened. Not after what they'd tried to do. Not after the year of quiet manipulation that had led to this exact afternoon. So I did something more surgical. We're going back outside, I said. All of us. And we're going to finish my birthday party like a family. Dad. Chandler started. I'm not finished, I said. And something in my tone made even Joanne glance at me with mild surprise, because I rarely raise my voice. But I didn't need volume for this. We're going outside. And before I go back out there to finish enjoying my birthday cake, the one your mother specifically ordered with my favorite raspberry filling, which I haven't even tasted yet because someone decided my own birthday party was the right venue for elder fraud, I'm going to say a few words, a toast. And you and Melody are going to stand there and let me say them. You're going to humiliate us in front of everyone, Melody said, her voice tight with something that was equal parts fear and fury. No, I said. You humiliated yourselves the moment you decided your father's birthday party was a good cover story for stealing his house. I'm simply going to make sure the people who love me know the truth, so nobody at this party spends the next 10 years believing I handed my home over willingly out of some sentimental old man generosity. I have some pride left, even at 72. I intend to keep it. We walked back outside together. Me, Joanne, Rachel, Cole, Iris trailing close to my side with her small hand back in mine, and Chandler and Melody following a few paces behind, their faces arranged into the careful blankness of people trying very hard not to look like they'd just been caught. The party noise dimmed slightly as we crossed the lawn, the way a room senses tension before it understands the source of it. Joanne's sister noticed first, gave me a questioning look. I just smiled, the kind of smile that promised nothing was wrong, while also promising something was about to happen. I picked up a fork and tapped it against my lemonade glass. The crowd quieted, gathering attention the way it does at every birthday party in America, expecting a sentimental toast about getting older and grateful hearts and another trip around the sun. "Thank you all for coming," I began, and my voice carried easily across the yard. 40 years of presenting to clients, having given me the particular skill of speaking loudly without seeming to shout. 72 years. I never thought I'd make it this far, honestly. My doctor's as surprised as anyone. A ripple of polite laughter. I want to thank my wife Joanne, who's put up with me for 46 years and somehow still finds new things to love about me, which I consider a minor miracle given how stubborn I am. More laughter, warmer this time. I want to thank my daughter Rachel for flying in, and my granddaughter Iris, who I learned today has the sharpest ears and the bravest heart in this entire family. Iris beamed up at me, cheeks pink, and squeezed my hand. And I want to thank my son Chandler and his wife Melody. I let the pause stretch just slightly too long, just long enough for people to feel it. Because today, they taught me something important. They taught me that no matter how old you get, no matter how many years you've spent providing for your family, some people will always see your hard work as something to be taken, rather than something to be honored. Today they brought a lawyer to my birthday party, not to celebrate with me, but to convince me to sign away my home, under the pretense that I'm too confused to know better. The yard went silent in the specific electric way a room goes silent when everyone present suddenly understands they're witnessing something they weren't supposed to see. Melody's hand flew to her mouth. Chandler's face had gone the color of old paste. They timed it, I continued. Steady, unhurried, for right after the gathering started, while everyone was distracted. They scheduled it before my daughter arrived, because they knew she'd ask the questions they didn't want answered. And the only reason I'm standing here telling you this, instead of having already signed my house away, is because an 8-year-old girl loved her grandfather enough to risk getting in trouble with her own parents to warn him. I looked down at Iris, the whole yard followed my gaze. So today, on my 72nd birthday, I learned exactly who in this family I can trust with my future. And I want everyone here to know it, because I'm done pretending otherwise, for the sake of keeping the peace. Nobody clapped. Nobody laughed. Joanne's sister had her hand pressed to her chest. Cole had gone very still beside Rachel. Somewhere near the dessert table, one of my old colleagues from the firm muttered something that sounded distinctly like "Good God." Chandler tried to speak. "Dad, that's not. You're making it sound worse than—" "Is there a version?" I asked, turning to him directly now, in front of everyone, where it sounds better. "Walk me through it. I'm listening." He had nothing. 41 years old, and in front of his own family, his own daughter, his own sister, he had absolutely nothing to say. "That's what I thought," I said. "Joanne, I believe we still have a cake to cut. I won't pretend the rest of the party continued normally, because it didn't, and I won't pretend that was an accident." Chandler and Melody left within 20 minutes. Melody crying into her phone in the driveway. Chandler loading gift bags into their car with the stiff, jerky movements of a man whose entire performance had just collapsed in front of an audience he couldn't control. Nobody stopped them. Nobody chased after them with comforting words. Iris stayed with us. That detail matters more than anything else in this story. So let me say it plainly. When her parents went to leave, Iris looked at her mother, looked at her father, and then looked at me and Joanne, and said, "Can I stay here tonight?" Melody's face crumpled at that. But she nodded. What else could she do, after everything that had just been laid bare in front of 40 witnesses and a recording on Rachel's phone? That night, after the balloons had been taken down and the last guests had gone home, Joanne and I sat on the back porch with Iris between us, eating the leftover raspberry-filled cake straight from the container, with 2 forks and a spoon, the 3 of us alone in the quiet. "Am I going to get in trouble?" Iris asked again, smaller this time, the bravado of the afternoon finally giving way to an 8-year-old's exhaustion. "No, sweetheart," I told her. "You're the reason there's still a house for you to come visit your grandfather in. You did something today most adults wouldn't have had the courage to do." "Mom's going to be really mad." "Your mother," Joanne said, with the particular gentleness she reserves only for grandchildren, "made her own choices today. You're not responsible for fixing them. You're 8. Your only job is to be a kid. In the weeks that followed, the consequences arrived the way consequences usually do. Not in one dramatic explosion, but in a series of quiet, irreversible decisions. Our attorney, Claire Vance, confirmed everything I'd suspected. Bennett's firm had a documented history of facilitating exactly this kind of transfer. Vague enough to seem benign on the surface, predatory enough in the fine print to strip vulnerable older adults of their assets, while maintaining just enough plausible deniability to avoid outright fraud charges. With Rachel's video and the photographed documents, Claire filed a formal complaint with the state bar against Bennett and began the process of formally and permanently restructuring our existing trust to remove any ambiguity, any loophole, any future opportunity for anyone to attempt what Chandler and Melody had attempted that afternoon. Chandler and Melody were removed entirely. Not reduced. Not restricted. Removed. Every account, every asset, every clause that had once named them as potential beneficiaries was rewritten, line by line, with Claire's careful guidance, until their names appeared nowhere in our estate at all. Rachel and Cole became the named executors. And this was Joanne's idea, and I supported it without a single moment of hesitation. A separate, protected trust was established for Iris alone, structured in a way that ensured her parents could never access it, never control it, never touch a cent of it, until Iris herself was old enough to manage it without their interference. Chandler called, of course, several times. Voicemails ranging from defensive to apologetic to, eventually, something approaching genuine desperation as the financial reality of being cut entirely from our estate began to sink in. Melody sent a long letter, handwritten, full of phrases like we never meant for it to look that way, and we were only trying to protect our future. I read it once. I didn't respond. This is the part where some people expect a softening. A reconciliation scene. A tearful Christmas dinner years later where everyone forgets the past and the family heals. I'm not going to give you that, because that's not what happened. And frankly, I don't believe it should have happened. What my son and his wife attempted wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't an overreaction to one forgotten kettle. It was a calculated, deliberate plan to exploit my age, my trust, and my love for them, in order to take what they hadn't earned and didn't deserve. They brought a predatory lawyer to my birthday party. They scheduled their own father's exploitation around celebration, hoping the noise of the family would cover the silence of what they were really doing. An 8-year-old girl had more integrity than both of them combined. So no, there was no reconciliation. Chandler and Melody are no longer part of our holidays, our trust, our future. They send cards on occasions now and then, which Joanne files away unopened in a drawer she calls, without much humor, the evidence box. But Iris still comes every other weekend. She helps Joanne in the garden. She sits with me in my study, the same study where her parents once tried to take everything from me, and she draws pictures at the desk her father used to own, and sometimes, when she thinks I'm not paying attention, she looks around that room like she's making sure it's still standing the way it's supposed to. It is. It always will be. Because on my 72nd birthday, while the cake sat half-cut, and the balloons swayed in a backyard breeze, an 8-year-old girl whispered the truth that exposed everything her parents had spent 6 months trying to hide, and gave an old man back the one thing they'd been counting on him, never realizing he was about to lose. His house, his dignity, and, in the end, the truth. If you liked this story, join our community by hitting that like button and subscribing for more real, raw, and family-centered stories.